Welcome back to the shop, you guys. Thanks for joining me this week. This is the part where the rubber meets the road with our bamboo back and belly Duoflex bow, the flat limbed variety, and I feel the need to distinguish this bow as a flat limbed bow because having gotten this far, it is becoming apparent to me that I'm going to have to try and build this bow again with my regular crowned pieces of bamboo where I feel a little more comfortable with the strength that I'm going to get out of those particular lambs versus what I'm getting out of these flat pieces. In any event, here is the repair that we worked on last week. We encountered a crack straight across a node, so this crack is oriented perpendicular to our limb and presents a unique issue for us to try and solve. I have given it a temporary repair of fiberglass strapping tape. If you haven't seen the video on how I applied that, I'll put a card here in the video. One more thing that I did in addition to that was put one wrap right through the center of it. So here's where the crack is. I have my two end wraps and then one wrap right across the center. Today is the day. We're going to find out if this repair worked. So I'm going to put a lot of faith in the tapers of my limb pieces, my laminations, and I'm going to basically just take this to the tiller tree and we're going to try and work it to full draw. Let's see if we got a shooting bow at the end of all of this. Right before we get started here, let's give this guy a measure. We've been keeping track of the amount of stress that we're taking in the form of lost setback. So here is bow sitting on the workbench, and we are sitting right now at about 1.5 inches setback, right where we left it in the last video. So as we move along here, we'll just keep track of how much of that we give back. Okay guys, I don't know if this backdrop is going to help or hurt, but had this thing drawing to 23 inches before, and I'm going to try and ease it back to that. I'm going to be kind of quiet too, see if we can pick up any cracking that's occurring. You can hear it. Can hear it. It's cracking elsewhere. So you can see those bends right out of the fade. This is looking very suspect to me right here. And this is where I was trying to weaken it some. This is where I had that issue before in my upper limb. This thing's really acting like it wants to blow. Yeah, I'm just studying this bend. The bend on that left limb is really, it's almost looking like a hinge in comparison to the limb on the right. Now, mind you, that's our stiffer limb, so the recurve is actually holding a stronger setback than on the right-hand side. So you can see on the right-hand side, it's kind of angling down at this point. So I think this limb is actually behaving the way I want it to with a Duoflex, where it's straightening out. And this limb's behaving more like a regular recurve, where we're getting a lot of bend through the main body of the limb, but we're not getting it straightening out as we progress to the far end of the limb. Two things to be done there. I mean, we can try and work the belly, which, you know, like I said, I want to trust the tapers on these limbs, or we can increase the pyramid front profile, so narrowing the limb on its edges to try and encourage a little more bend at the far end here. So like I say, I don't want to just up and break this thing. I also don't want to invest too much more time into it if that's what's going to happen in the end. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll remove the fix here, kind of see what it looks like at this point, and then probably taper it a little quicker down to the tip and see if that changes the shape of the bend. So I'm gonna go do that work and we'll put it back on the tillering tree here. Taking that tape off of that limb really helps me understand how it keeps everything together. That stuff was not easy to take off. So something to think about in terms of using it as a temporary fix. It may be temporary, but it took me probably twice as long to get it off as it did to put it on. Here is the crack, and actually I think I'm going to move it into the sunlight because it's a little bit easier to see. So you can see it. You can definitely see it. Get a pretty good shadow on there. But additionally, you can see that I struck a couple pencil lines on there for where I'm going to be removing the wood on the edges. So it's, I'm sorry, this is probably really bad on camera. But just narrowing it from the back or the bottom half of the limb. So here you can see the lines pretty much start right about here and they progressively get deeper into the limb. So I'm giving it a little faster pyramid shape to them. So it's going to taper quicker on its edges. And hopefully that gives me a little better bend in the end result. So this is a method of tillering on the side versus tillering the belly. I also took and sanded out this portion of the belly pretty good, mostly because this was taking belly fibers with it, and it just kind of lifted some like fur more or less here that I needed to sand out. But I'm going to go ahead and run this over to the sander, take it down to those pencil lines, reapply the tape, and get her back onto the tillering tree. A little update to my repair process, since you know we got to take this apart, put it back on so frequently. I put the linear piece in a little shorter length, right, and left the tabs out, put in wraps on each end, and then one right across the center where the crack exists, because since this is doubled over, it is not going to be able to pull underneath the wrap that has secured it to the limb, which kind of negates the need to fold it over and secure it a second time. So kind of an evolving process here, but here we are nonetheless. I have thinned out that limb. You'll see the pencil lines are missing, although I sanded the whole thing anyway. Took a little more off the belly just by virtue of sanding it again. Let's see here, if we put this flat to the workbench again, you can see that this is my top limb. This was the one that was always kind of struggling to get past the 3/4 inch facing of the workbench. So the return on this recurve is just right about even to that. The lower one, light is bothering this. Shucks, I don't think I'm going to get a good shot here given the light. But if you can kind of make out the 3/4 inch, it's actually below that. So I think I'm actually pulling, here we go, this will be a little better. That lower recurve is starting to catch up to the upper recurve in terms of how far it's pulling out. And I've only just strung this. I haven't pulled on it at all. I'm going to take a quick measure of the fade here. Talking about 7 inches right there. About 6 3/4 right here. Oh man, and this is my upper limb. 6 3/4, 7. Ooh, I may be flipping top for bottom here at this rate. We have definitely weakened this limb. This is almost shameful. I know, and I am sure you have heard it from far more sources than just me when I talk about easing into your tiller changes, like really making your adjustments small when you go to affect your tiller. Now, you guys saw the pencil lines that I had drawn out to take care of that lower limb to try and get it to catch up to what's going on the upper limb. And they were not, it wasn't a heck of a lot of wood. But if you look at this thing, you can see this has just opened up. I mean, just completely opened up. Even the handle is we'd only have to measure the handle to see that we've got a wider gap here compared to here. I mean, it's just not even hard to see. The wood I took off of here to try and get that limb curvature to speed up, well, it sped up all right. At this point, and I just went out and exercised it on the tillering tree, so to get the bend to settle in, and here we are. I'm not going to put a tape to it, but I'm going to tell you that the gap on this limb is a full inch greater than the gap over here. A full inch. That's not positive tiller. That's a disaster. I'm going to go ahead and take, at this point, guys, this bow is, for all intents and purposes, lost. It's 15 pounds at 24 inches. We'll be lucky if it even makes 20 pounds at 28 inches, given the spot I'm in now. Needing to take down now some material on this side to try and even here. We are officially in roller coaster tillering with this bow. With the likelihood of it just up and breaking being pretty high, because you can see this thing hinging right in that spot. Problems just plain abound with this thing. I am going to go ahead and take this down right quick and probably just give an end view of how this ends up from here. We're not going to spend any more time on video or in the workshop beyond just wrapping it up and getting it done. Well, amazingly, it didn't break. I take that back.